This being an anthology of UFO crashes, I feel I don't have to do a chronology, so I'm going to be jumping around and taking case by case of some that I've referenced. Saint-Geniez, France, March 18, 1972. In the winter of 1971, spring of 1972, there was a UFO flap. A flap being designated by a period of time where strange and anomalous lights are seen by countless multitudes. Well, that was the case in 1972 in the mountainous regions of northern France, in a town called Saint-Geniez, near the town of Sisteron. Allegedly a farmer and many residents, including the son of a mayor, a police officer, saw a disc-like reddish-orange light plummet into the hillside, which consequently ignited 40 acres of forest in the mountainous region of Saint-Geniez, France. Now, this farmer swore that the object was ovoidal or discoidal in nature when it plummeted to the Earth's surface. And the story continues on that the French Army and French Secret Service and Gendarmerie came in and carted the thing out, and was immediately ruled as a classified incident. Next up, March 1987, medical doctor on his 400-acre farm, western Kentucky. All of these stories, incidentally, coming from Timothy Good's UFO report. Walking one morning, and on his 400-acre farm, comes around a large, burnt-out patch around a clump of trees. And next to the patch, the burnt-out circle, it looked like skeletons. So he, being a medical doctor, he noticed, well, the skeletons were depleted of flesh and any ligaments or muscles, and noticed they had large craniums, a cat-like jaw, barrel-shaped rib cage, long arms with 3 digits for fingers. Obviously, they had been picked at and consumed by some sort of predator. So they weren't human, too. They were 4 feet tall. Or they weren't human size. They were children with 3 fingers is what he had first thought, being a medical doctor, that some of their digits or phalanges had been removed by predators. But notice that they were of a natural evolutionary phenomena as far as the digits on their hand. They had 3 perfect fingers on both bodies. So obviously he calls the sheriff. Sheriff calls the military. Colonel shows up the next day as 3 helicopters land on this farmer's farm. The story coming to surface in March of '87, and they're in black overalls. These people that come from these black helicopters, probably special operations. And he's sworn to secrecy, warned to quote unquote shut up. The land they find bits and pieces of burnt ceramic in the ground where this burnt circle was. And they conclude, they meaning the colonel and his special forces group, conclude that the ground had been baked to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. They remove the skeletons, bulldoze over the area, and say good day, and get in their copters and leave. The next incident referenced by Timothy Good is in the spring of 1987, where allegedly in southwestern Ohio, a farmer came upon a crashed disc with 3 female, non-human-looking bodies strewn about the crash site. Good goes on to reference that people were threatened, sworn to secrecy, and that the site was, obviously the military came in, penetrated the area, and I guess there was a difficult time removing the wreckage from the area because it had been so remote and inaccessible in that portion of southwestern Ohio. But apparently there were metallic fragments that were embedded into the soil along with this crashed disc. And the military came in, carted it out, told everyone to keep your mouth shut or you will die, and then bulldozed over the area. So that sounds remarkably similar to the Kentucky incident. Third incident to be referenced today, Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, December 9th, 1965. That night, some object had been seen and viewed by many witnesses in several states as it went from west to east, and finally allegedly went down in a heavily wooded area near Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. A fireman named Pete remembers at the time getting a call saying that an aircraft had crashed in the forest. And right off the bat, he assumed it very strange because there was no fire. So apparently he went into the forest and got a look at this object that was in at a 30-degree angle. It had knocked down a 15 to 25-foot tree and had made a 25-foot long trench, which was about 7 feet deep. He estimated the object to be about 7 feet high with a bumper on the bottom of it. He said it was almost acorn-shaped, okay? And at the bottom, where it had entered or penetrated the ground, there was a bumper. And on the bumper, he noticed some hieroglyphic-type writing, rectangles, circles, dots, and lines, and whatnot. And being of Polish descent, he was asked, is that Russian writing? He said, no, I know Russian writing. Being from Polish descent, that was not Russian writing. So anyways, obviously there was a sudden incursion of military personnel to the area. And also NORAD and SPADATS, which is a Space Air Defense and Tracking Systems, had no records of any of their military or Soviet hardware re-entering the atmosphere on that date. So the military comes in, cordons off the area. People to this day won't talk about it in Kecksburg, but the town was swarming with military personnel. They bring in a flatbed truck. They bring in half-tracks, armored personnel carriers, and cart out this 7-foot-high acorn-shaped object out of the forest in Kecksburg. And some claiming it was a Soviet satellite. And again, I referenced the NORAD and SPADATS information saying that nothing of a military nature, as far as satellites go, had re-entered the atmosphere that day. But before they were chased out by the retrieval team, they got a look at the object, and it was very strange. Quote, Pete said, it was something that appeared to be not of this world in structure and manufacture. According to Don Schmidt and Kevin Randall in the book UFO Crash at Roswell, their account of Kecksburg is as follows, that an object was seen over Michigan, heading south, and it turned over Ohio and made a sharp maneuver before it plummeted in southwestern Pennsylvania, southwest of Pittsburgh, at Kecksburg. And at 4:47 p.m. on that day, well, prior to it plummeting in Kecksburg, so the story goes that in Lapeer, Michigan, the people that sighted that saw some things break off from it and fall into the forest and start small fires. So according to the witnesses, some particles came streaking off of the object and caused fires. Anyways, it came down. A woman claimed at 4:47 p.m., a resident of Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, that she saw something plummet into the heavily wooded area, and a thick column of blue smoke plumed upward. And then she said she saw a star-like object, a light above it. So at 7 o'clock, the Pennsylvania State Police are notified. They show up. They fail to find anything, and the volunteer fire department is notified. Rumors swirling that the military is on their way, that an incursion is imminent, and certainly military shows up. The entire town is cordoned off. People from NASA are being flown in. Obviously, at this point, speculation running that it's a Soviet probe. I spoke about the NORAD reports earlier. So the military comes in, and one witness says that the object was embedded in a stream bed. It was acorn-shaped, golden in color. And then the military came in and carted it out on a flatbed truck. As an aside, that was even reported here in Boston by the Boston Record American. They had an article that said, Police, Army seal off woods in UFO probe. The fourth crash I'd like to reference is from Bozeman, Montana, which is the first published report of a saucer crash, Roswell notwithstanding. Actually, it preceded Roswell's report, Walter Haut's press release, by a day. On July 7th, 1947, the Des Moines Register put an article in whereby a commercial photographer flying in a plane, a P-38 Lightning, was flying at about 32,000 feet at 360 miles an hour over the Tobacco Root Mountains near Bozeman, Montana. Now, Time magazine even makes a mention of this later on, whereby there was a saucer crash, or Time magazine makes the reference there was an aircraft that crashed that was piloted by a child. Now, we think that quite odd because, first of all, children don't fly. I think that kid that flew around the world with his dad sitting co-pilot and he handled the controls for some of it. Children don't know how to fly aircraft, so naturally, all of the reports we received about aliens being 3 and 4 feet tall, though they do fit the child description. So Time magazine mentions that there was a downed aircraft with a child had piloted it, and they also reference Bozeman, Montana. So I found that quite odd. Because that would fit in the same time period, 1947, July 7th, 1947, of this Bozeman incident. But anyways, the P-38 Lightning, twin-prop, turbopropped aircraft used in the latter stages of World War II. Not aerodynamically sound, but the plane was basically 2 large engines with an aircraft built around it. So the article says that a man by the name of Vernon Baird, on a government mission, was taking photographs over the Tobacco Root Mountains when a group of objects appeared behind him and began to pace his aircraft. The story goes on to say in the Des Moines Register that one of the objects, pearl gray and clam-shaped in nature with a plexiglass dome on top, decided to come up behind the P-38, which was a turboprop aircraft, and apparently it just disintegrated or blew up in his prop wash, which is the air blown backwards by the spinning propellers of the aircraft. And again, it's hard to predict how something would react in another aircraft's thrust. So anyways, the story goes that one of the objects came out of the formation and paced his aircraft, then somehow got behind the P-38 Lightning into his prop wash and disintegrated, split open like a clamshell, and spiraled into the Tobacco Root Mountains. And that's where you pick up the Time story that says an aircraft piloted by a child had been found in that area. So I found that quite odd. And then it goes on to say that J.J. Archer, the Vernon Baird's boss, says that it was nothing. There was no incident that he was mistaken. It was a flock of birds. But the key is that he was hired by the government, Vernon Baird was, to take photographs for whatever reason of the Tobacco Root Mountains, and that's when these discoidal objects appeared. So that, I think, is the first reference to a UFO crash in American literature in the Tobacco Root Mountains in Bozeman, with this craft getting caught up in a P-38 Lightning's prop wash, splitting open like a clamshell and spiraling to Earth. And then, of course, the story says that there was an alien body found, or as Time magazine said, an aircraft piloted by a child. Also, from the Schmidt and Randall book comes a report on August 22nd, 1981. In Argentina, several witnesses describing a stricken, disc-shaped object that began wobbling and plummeting to Earth, then halted its descent part way down, then exploded, raining debris down onto a forested area. Shortly after that incident, military is seen in the area, military aircraft cordoned off, barring the curious, and the story goes on to say that 2 badly burned bodies were recovered. Next up, May 6th, 1978, from the Schmidt and Randall book, UFO Crash at Roswell, Bolivia. Hundreds of witnesses claim they saw an elongated object fly over them and then plummet into the jungle. There was a UFO flap or wave at that time, and 3 members of a Bolivian mining company and Bolivian customs officials also saw this incident. Now, of course, when the Bolivian government arrives, they cordon off the area, barring cameramen and tourists. But people say that there was a UFO wave at that time taking place in that area of Bolivia, and that it plummeted into a thick, jungled area in rainforest. Next up, allegedly, on August 8th, 1976, over Presidente Prudente, Sao Paulo, Brazil. Apparently, some sort of elongated object exploded in a brilliant and spectacular fashion over their town. Now, speculation was, as was in the preceding Bolivian incident that I had just referenced, that it was either a Soviet or American satellite that had re-entered the atmosphere. But again, an entire town witnessed this phenomena in the summer of 1976.